And welcome back. Welcome to the first segment of our show this morning. On the set with us, we have representatives of the public transportation industry. To be specific, we have with us the president of the Belize Bus Association, Mr. Thomas Shaw. Good morning.
Good morning.
We also have with us Mark Humes. He's the president of the Bus Terminal Water Association, Bus Terminal Water Association.
Yeah.
All right. Water
Yeah.
taxi. All right.
Yeah.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank
Good
you.
morning.
Begin by sharing with us and our viewers the latest in terms of what has happened after the statutory instrument came into force last Wednesday.
If I may, good morning once again, Belize. Yeah, the statutory instrument had been signed by the minister last Thursday, and what happened was that when this thing was signed, these boats should cease and desist from entering the country and abide by what had been stated in the SI. But apparently the people at the border points, they were not notified as to, they didn't get no directive as to what to do. So the buses were still coming in. So our members were still a bit riled up to wonder why this was happening and why this was still happening. And we called the minister, we called the CEO, and they inform us that yes, they have been given directive, and since Friday, these buses have ceased and desist from coming into the country.
It was a period of negotiations that spanned about 5 months, you said, since you had finally formalized yourselves to put your position forward to the government. And I wanted to make that clarification because the buses have been running in Belize for much longer than 5 months. It was a matter of the public transportation getting together and saying we're going to unite on this issue. One of the things we saw following the meeting with the government officials was a very clear call on the public transportation system that while they understand your plea in not having foreign bus operators taking money away from our local economy, they also want better services from our public transportation. I want to give you the opportunity to respond to that.
Based on that, what we have done, we have made our position clear. Since the SI had been signed, we went up to the western border. We had a meeting with the taxi operators and explained to them the situation and the position. That, in other words, if we're supposed to ask for certain things, then we need to do our part. Thursday, again, we held a meeting here in Belize City with BTB and the way forward. And they were giving us, because they're the ones who had a problem with this taking place. And so far we can see a way forward because we met with them. We had tour guides, we had from Premier Charters, we had other operators. And what they proposed to us was that you have the European tourists that comes in that books almost like a year or 8 months in advance and what they're looking for. So we went there and they told us, well, they need an inventory, they need prices, they need coach buses, reclined seat, bathrooms, and all the rest of it. So we actually compiled and we got that together and we gave it to them. And it's a work in progress, but we actually started. It's not like the SI has been signed and the operators sat back. We are actually working together with BTB, and they are more than happy to know that, well, we're on the right track.
All of this, in my opinion, revolves around standards being set and quality of service being delivered.
Right.
In terms of visitors who come to the country, have certain expectations in terms of either public transportation, hotel stays, whatever it may be. They are looking for you guys to be able to deliver the best possible service. But when you look at the lay of the land, so to speak, you look at the industry as it is, there are still some ways to go.
Absolutely.
How do you guys now plan to move in a particular direction that would be able to meet or satisfy these expectations?
We've heard the concern of the public, and you know, always they say there is two sides to every story. One of the things that the public keeps saying is, well, how would you provide this kind of service, you know, exclusively, and then you're gonna will tear up, block down bus on the road? Well, there are 3 different levels of service that I have learned working together with the Bus Association. And there is the regular bus service, and each level have a different price because it has a different costing, just like a hotel or a B&B or a hostel. And so there is a regular bus service, which the public is aware of. Then there is the air-conditioned express service, and then there is the premier, which would be at ADO and whatever. So, and the Bus Association have all those services, and we have pictures, we have inventory, as I said. We have met with the BTIA, the Belize Tourist Board, Belize Hotel Association, all these concerned partners that we can do the job. But the thing is that if customers mostly want to pay a rate for a regular bus, but then want a premier service.
Gotcha.
But then they are willing to get on a foreign bus and pay 25 US from here to Flores or Chetumal or Bacalar or whatever, but then you get on a local bus and there is a cost for that. So the things that the Bus Association is saying is that we can provide the service and we will be providing that service, but just because there is the cost. So don't get on a regular bus and pay a regular bus fare and expect, you know, luxury service.
Yeah.
But I think, to be fair too, there's a very important perception that has to be overcome, and I'll say perception, but for some people it's a real practice. The foreign buses are held to particular guidelines, and so their professionalism and what you as the customer can expect, it's known ahead of time. It will leave the time it's supposed to leave. It will arrive at the destination it's supposed to arrive. It will be functional. And in extreme cases, if there's a breakdown, there's always a contingency plan. So you can schedule whatever it is your travel based on knowing definitively what will happen. That's always been an indictment on our local operators. And this is buses specifically. And I think that that's perhaps where we can start. I think we have to be honest in saying that the public transportation system in Belize has been allowed for far too long to kind of just function on its own. And there are some companies and some groups that work very hard to be professional, but when you look at the overall picture, it's still very disjointed. So let's use the example of James Bus Line, for example, offering Wi-Fi, AC, have a set schedule for as long as possible. And people want to use James for that reason. But if we look at the other buses that break down, that are overcrowded, that have torn seats, and yes, they're a regular run, but
or they
perhaps
don't stick to schedule.
they don't stick to schedule. They wait until it's full to be able to move off. If I look at a wonderful AC SUV taxi, those exist. I know that much. But then I also have the ones who I can't roll up the window or roll it down, and there's no AC as well. And there are more fumes coming into the car than going out of the car. So the reality is that you have a full spectrum, and people do not see that they can get the level of professionalism that they know they can get from the foreign companies.
This has, I've listened to you, Marlene, but actually what is happening on the ground, and this is the reason why the BBA with the Taxi Federation and Association have actually joined forces. Our operators out there want to do better. And this is the reason why we are trying to have an MOU signed, so that, because one of the problems that exists at the moment is that we have too many operators out there. It's too saturated. And you find out that if an operator has a 7 o'clock run, somebody just come from nowhere and get a 15 minutes run right in front of you. And this is what is creating the problem. And what we are trying to do is to work hand in hand with the ministry to make sure that whenever an investor is out there and he has an investment, that operator investment is being protected. Because what is happening, and you find out the way it's going right now, our industry cannot grow. Because to every time you try to cross the hurdle, somebody comes and cuts a wing, the other one cuts a wing.
So perhaps there should be like a moratorium on the number of licenses for bus operators.
Well, we had some consultants came in already, and they told GOB that because we had this transportation master plan to be rolled out. And they said the only thing to fix this problem, their first observation was that we have too many players. Too many players. And most of the buses were traveling at like 45%.
Yeah.
You know, and when they look at it, they see where that was a major problem. But since then, permits has been issuing, operators just come on board, and then you have operators that have been out there for years and have a vast investment in the business, and you find out that operators just come overnight. You have established a run for almost 4 or 5 years, and you borrow your mortgage is based on your income, and when you look, an operator comes from nowhere, cuts into it, the other one comes, cuts into it, so you get to the point that, really and truly, for the viewers out there, this industry isn't being subsidized. There's no subsidy for no operators out there.
Not for importation of buses,
Absolutely
not for fuel,
nothing.
not for parts.
So I have to applaud the operators that are out there and trying their utmost best, because it's easier said than done to just point fingers at the operators and say, do this, do that. The operators want to excel. They want to provide a better service. So what we as myself as the president, what we are trying to put in place, because we need to start somewhere. We have formed a disciplinary committee, and because we know, I'm not going to sit here and say, well, our operators are the best. Oh, we need training for drivers and conductors. We're trying to put things in place. We want to have this MOU signed with GOB that an operator is being problematic out there. You get the first report, you give you a second report. The third one, then the association will be making recommendation to the Department of
license or take some
Absolutely. So all of these things we're trying to put in place, because at the end of the day, at the meeting with the tourism board, we spoke about PR. We know that, yes, we have a long way to go, and it's something that is actually needed, and not just for our tourists, for our local commuters as well. We need to show respect. We got to be respectful.
We would love to see the same service offered to both tourists and locals. There shouldn't be a distinction. But let me just get this in here, because I don't want to pretend that we haven't heard this conversation before. I know that the bus operators have clearly spoken of the fact that there's a saturation in the market, and you pointed it out. There are 10 half-full buses when realistically you could try to get 5 full buses, and people can make the money to pay back for the cost of the buses. The terms of the permits was another issue that you had brought up before, because when you go to the bank to try to get your loan for the bus, they're going to look at how long your permit is for, and if you can recover the money to be able to pay for the bus. You had the ideal audience with the transport minister, the tourism minister, the attorney general. And there is also, let me just throw this in there, the discrepancy between what the national transport can do and what the municipal transport can do. And I look at you for taxi, because I know that's also an issue with taxis as well. Did you bring these concerns to them so that you can start to have a conversation about formalizing and improving the industry now that it has been agreed upon that they want to keep the business for Belizeans?
Sure. This thing is an ongoing process. But what was most important for us is to hit the things that is most urgent on the front. So for us and the association, we have not arrived. This is just the beginning. And since we have a good dialogue now with GOB, we'll continue meetings. We have a next meeting set to assess what is going on with the SI for October 8th. And we told them that we have things that we have in place that, for example, pertaining to the SI, we will ourselves want to get on those buses and make sure that there is services delivered. If those services are not delivered, those buses will be taken off the road, conductors will be reprimanded, whatever happens there. And we already had in place that we will give monthly reports to GOB, because this is an industry that we want to protect. We want the people that wants to grow in it will grow, the people that are not serious will be phased out. So we will continue to meet with GOB and deal with other issues, because there are so many things on the table to discuss, but we felt that this was most important and most urgent. So the dialogue with GOB continues in setting proper timing for a bus to leave the terminal, overcrowding buses that are not on par. So all those things are on board that we'll continue to discuss. Even the not only the buses, but the taxi license plates, you know, and all of that. So those things were mentioned, but they said, let's deal with this first, and we'll continue to deal with the other issues.
Where are we insofar as the rollout of the transportation master plan, and how does this fit into that broader picture?
To be honest with you, April of this year, we should have got a feedback from GOB concerning pertaining to that, but we're neither here nor there with that. Sad to say, and this is what I'm saying. Sometimes we say things, but there is no follow-up. But we, the operators, as I said, we are willing and ready to work hand in hand with GOB to see how we can solve this crisis that is within our country. Even at the terminals, we find out the way passengers board the bus, and I'm behind my operators to let us start utilizing the tickets, because whenever if you sell a ticket, you're not going to sell more tickets than a bus can take at the terminal. But due to the fact that there's no ticket being sold at the terminal, whenever they open the gate, if there's 100 people, the 100 people try to get on board the bus. So
you have standees, you have all these other issues.
So when you look at it, it all boils down to enforcement, because we have laws in our country, but honestly, there's not much enforcement. We don't have enough wardens out there to really monitor the system, because when the warden is on this end, the operators there on the other end doing their own thing. And this is what we're telling GOB, is not to take any powers away from the Department of Transport. But what we had explained to the minister, that what the association wanted to do before a license is being granted to an operator, that application goes to the association for vetting. But apparently the minister didn't really agree on that.
So who approves the license for a new bus line?
The transport board, the ministry. They approve.
On what grounds? Based on what you know with your profession?
Well, they approve a run based on if there's a need for the run, then they'll go ahead and approve a run, but it's not being done that way. It's not being done that way. And this is the reason why.
So if I apply, they just decide whether or not I deserve it, or if the run is necessary?
Well, it all depends on which side you're on. It all depends, because sometimes, as I said, what we are trying in our MOU, we have in there that we like the political interference to stay out of it, due to the fact that whenever the board make a decision, some operators feel like they don't have to go to the board or the association to get the blessings. And they go around and they go directly to the minister, and what else can the board do? Your hands are tied because apparently you're my boss. And
doesn't that undermine the actual process or the system that is put in place there?
It does. And this is the reason why, for viewers, I don't want nobody to feel like we want to create a monopoly, but what we want to do is to see a smooth transition into this industry, and to make sure that all operators, everybody that is out there, your investments are being protected. Because what has been taking place is that at the board level, you find out that you're out there for years and you have a run established. And we were telling about the 15 minutes is good in the peak hours. But when it comes after 9, 10, 11, 12,
things
I mean, what you do, you're telling the operators, no speeding. You're not supposed to do that. But at the end of the day, you give an operator around 15 minutes ahead of Mr. Humes, which creates racing on the road, because in 15 minutes, when you're getting out of the terminal, before you turn the corner, the other bus is behind you already. You have buses that leave non-stop and the regular. Sometimes the non-stop is much faster than the express. It gets into the terminal before the real express bus. And this creates racing on the road. So as a responsible body, what we do, we are trying to see how we can get a teeth, some sort of protection, whereas the association have certain says in terms of the issuing of permits, license plates. You find out that the municipal body, most people doesn't go to central transport and get a plate. They go to the municipal body. When you look at the Benkevejo Town Council, well, I think here in Belize City they're working on it, but I think they has to have a cutoff point, whereas we have to diversify. Everybody can't do the same thing.
That was going to be my question, because you've said a couple of very clear things so far. There is a national transport plan.
Right.
There was an assessment done on the number of buses and the
Right.
number of runs. It was already established that the market was saturated.
Right.
And what you're saying is, subsequent to all of that, there were still new licenses and permits issued
Right.
following this information. And these permits come directly from the government itself, from the transport board, under the guidance of the minister. So what hope do you have, and how are you going to ensure now that moving forward you will return back to some of the very same information that came out in the preparation of the National Master
Exactly.
Plan, perhaps do a count or your own assessment as to how many buses and how many operators are currently working, and moving towards, even if it's a moratorium, or where you can get up and say there's another bus that got a license. Since you have an audience, people are looking at you as a public transportation. They want
Absolutely.
you to do better.
Right.
What you are explaining is the reasons why you have challenges in improving your services. So it's in everyone's best interest that we rectify these issues as well.
It has to be a working relationship with GOB and the Minister of Transport. And whenever we sit here, it's not necessary to bring down the GOB, because we have to communicate, we have to collaborate, we have to, whenever you see something, you need to speak about it, and let the public know exactly this is what is actually affecting us. And then once we can get the minister to really sit down, as it is right now, I can jump on the phone and I can call the minister. Yes, he's going to respond. But somewhere down the road, you see a new operator get a license. And when you look at the signature, it's not even the chair, the person, whether it's the chair of the board, signature is on there. It's someone else's signature is on there. And we told them already, nobody should get if you give somebody a temporary permit, it should be for existing runs, not for new runs, because you're going to give a new operator a temporary permit and have the operator operating out there for 6 months, a year. How can you go and take it back after a year? So the thing is that why give, if there's an existing operator like Mr. Humes, myself, you're out there already, you can give a temporary based on your renewal. But somebody that is just trying to get into the business, some permits or application go to the board, or they're waiting for the approval because they need to take that to the bank. Now what we're doing, we're setting up these people to fail, because I can tell you this much. From the outside appearance, the industry, it looks so feasible. But once you get in there, it's a different story, because you have so many roadblocks, left, right, and center.
Now, we focus primarily on buses, but the Taxis Association are also a very important part of this. And where
Right.
you were losing perhaps the business, it was between the border and Benke and coming into some of the tour areas. And more critically in Belize City, where the buses were taxis bringing them directly to the water terminals. Talk to me about the challenges there and your own efforts in improvement.
Okay. Immediately when the SI was signed, we went to the Benke border that same day and met with the Benke taxi, because we had a concern of the three parties involved, taxi in Belize City Bus and taxi at the Benke. And on that note, me say this, based on the tourists coming in, the influx, there are two levels of customers. There are the backpackers which would go through the process of taking a taxi there and go through that transition. But there is also charter tours, which are booked from Europe and different places. For those purposes now, they are going to come into Belize, for example, previously with a Guatemalan or a Mexican bus, hire that bus for 4 or 5 days, do their tours or whatever across the country and go back either to PGIE or out of the country. We can't take them and put them in a taxi, put them in a bus. It's not, that's the reason why they booked the bus to do that. So we sat down with BTB and we says, we have those buses available. That is for a different level of customer. So just to make that clear. And as I said, we are dialoguing with all the stakeholders and we are being flexible. Let me backtrack a bit. When we went into the meeting and before the SI was signed on Tuesday, we were kind of surprised because we were in dialogue for 5 months and all of a sudden BTB, BTIA and BHA shows up. And we were like, we had a meeting with the Minister of Transport in the middle of May at BTB. So why are these concerns? Tourism, sorry. And why was these concerns brought up? So we were disappointed that after 5 months we are coming at the 11th hour now. And so that's one of the reasons why we were threatening with a strike. So just to get that clear.
Yeah.
So when that was finished, we went to the border. Our concern there was the taxis on the ground, whether they are adequate, just like the buses. We know that in Belize City we have a higher level of service. There are taximen with brand new vehicles. Go to the bank, whatever, $80,000-$90,000, brand new vehicles. And but at the same time, we have met customers on the ground, for example, the water taxi that are saying, not only do you have air condition, do you have seat belt in this car? And they're like, seat belt? I mean, that should be mandatory. But obviously they have ridden in a car that didn't have a seat belt. So again, how does a car get licensed? That's a part of the process. So we went there, we sat down with them, and they're saying to us, we're telling them that this little small Toyota Corolla geo-prison car that has a butane tank in the back can hold maybe 1 or 2 luggage. It's not going to work.
Can't work.
It's not going to work.
And if I come from a country where I never see something like that, you're not going to get me in that car either. Yeah.
So we start them with and says, well, don't you guys have any vans? Yes, we have a few vans. We have 3 vans right now. But the industry doesn't provide the service for us to bring them out. We say, well, no, you need to bring them out because now there will be more people coming in. And so they have agreed with us to come on board. There are 3 associations there at the border, and to come on board to upgrade their vehicles because now they will be making more money with that. And it's the same thing across the board with the taxis in Belize City. Guests come there, they will get a air-conditioned taxi to go in, and you will be on a rotation basis. You want to get into that groove, you got to up your game.
And what about the service for Belizeans? Because I'm here, and I understand the tourism aspect, because you go to a different country, sometimes you want to just get an all-in-one service that you don't have to think, and it's safe. You could check ratings, whatever it is. But what about service to locals as well? And I think that's when people hear this, they see that you want to remove what is also an option for Belizeans. Let's not be mistaken if they have to go to Guatemala City or Mexico. And they want to know that they're going to get optimum level service as well.
Right. For the record, as I said before, in our association, which is our cooperative, Bus Terminal Market Square Taxi Cooperative, we're one of the leading cooperative in many aspects. Larger, 57 members, we are well organized, we provide training for other taxi cooperatives across the country. One of the things is that we have members that have in industry. I mean, I have a new vehicle, a brand new vehicle. And it's my second brand new vehicle. I had my first new vehicle in 2006. And I provide that service. When people saw the vehicle, they were like, oh, you run tourists? I said, no, I do taxi, and I provide that service, and people like that. So when people come out of your taxi, if it's clean, it doesn't have to be new, but it's air conditioned, it's comfortable, it's clean, one of the first things people will ask you number, because you provide a level of service that people like, and professional service. You open the door for people, you get their luggage, you put it in, you take it out, especially for older folks, and they have luggage. I take them to their step, back their luggage, carry it. So these are the kind of things that we do, but sometimes people don't see that.
That speaks to a certain professional etiquette that a lot of service providers, because that's what it boils down to, a lot of service providers are lacking. They, for whatever reason, believe that you as the customer, that is on you to put in your own luggage, to make yourself comfortable, despite whatever the situation may be inside the vehicle.
Right.
But that's supposed to be services that you guys provide to attract and to keep the customers.
Well, we and for all operators that are listening, bus owners, it's a must that conductors should be always ready, be aggressive, always be ready to assist. If you're in the bus and the windows are open, you see the passenger here flying out. Excuse me, ma'am, would you like the window me to put the window up? Would you like me to take your window down? You see the passenger coming out with a child with an umbrella. You go there and try to assist. Some conductors doesn't even get out the bus. They stand at the door, block the doorway, and do all of this.
Or they don't get involved. One of the things that we don't adhere to is preferential seating, assisting elderly or those who are disabled or pregnant women, for example, getting into the bus. I mean, these steps are this high in a bus. After a certain age, your legs don't lift that high. What is the assistance that's being offered? Are they being given preferential seating?
Well, even that, I can categorically state that in my buses, if you look on the windshield, senior citizens board first. And I let my conductor know whenever the public, the commuters are standing out there, you look for senior citizens and you try to give them the preferential, give them a front seat. If that he or she's getting in, you try to reach out to them. Come on, me, let me help you in. But I must say that what has been taking place, that our Belizean commuters, they ask for a lot. And I'm not saying it's everybody, but it boils down to civic pride. The way I see some commuters behave and the way they destroy the equipment. I see the foreign buses comes into this country, they wipe their feet, they take the knife out their pockets, and they make sure when that bus gets to your destination, you don't even have to sweep it out. Here in Belize, the people wait until they get inside the bus to throw the peanut shell, the beer bottle. Banana they take the markers, they write on the seat, they cut the seats, and at the end of the day, these are the same people are bringing down the operators. So I'm speaking on behalf of the operators out there. In reality, on the ground, this is what is actually taking place. And come on, that, you know, there's a charge for that, damage to property, because they get inside the bus, and when you get a nice reclined seat and you see they take the knife and they just slash the seats, they take the marker, and when they get rid of writing on the back, they start on the piece that you're sitting on. So all of these things the operators are actually going through, and I think there has to be some sort of educational program out there. And I think that this thing begins at home, because what you do abroad, that's what you're going to do. What you do at home, that's what you're going to do abroad. But I would urge the riding public, and I'm not saying it's everybody that is doing it, especially some of the students. When you go to school, I don't think they teach you that in class. But it comes from a lot of the students. You see they get the pen or the marker out of their backpack, and they just start writing on the seats. And at the end of the day, the operators are being lashed with it, tear up seats, buck up this.
And I think that this is where one of the points that you mentioned, we're getting ready to wrap up this segment all the time, because there's a lot we can talk about. But the key point is that there has to be a collaborative effort here between the public transportation associations and the transport department, the Ministry of Transport, to ensure that we have an improved, and there has to be an intense level of public education. Because I also know when you don't stop on 3 parts of the street, you'll also come on the challenges as well. And if you try to get dollar taxes to adhere to what are the regulations in moving around, then you're also going to get complaints from the public. So there is an opportunity that can come from this obstacle that you've been able to overcome, and we really hope that you take advantage of it. I think the way the public has seen it, we have allow the bus operators a better playing field, and we're hoping that there will be reciprocity in delivering a better service. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you for coming. And before we close, I'd like to say a big thank you to GOB, because as I said, it took a while. It was a bit rough, but actually they came to the table and they sat with us. And I want to say a big thank you for that. And it's a work in progress, as my colleague on the other side stated.
Also.
We did a little compromise, but our intention is to keep on working hand in hand with the Department of Transport.
Well, thank you for coming in.
Thank you for having us.
All right. We're going to go ahead and take a break. When we come back, we will have the first live interview with our new Miss Universe Belize. So stay tuned.